Mark Zuckerberg drops $2 billion on a company that hasn't got a ready consumer product. Is this the start of a great vision or Zuck's folly? Oculus was a scrappy little company when in 2012 they went on Kickstarter to raise $250,000. Well, they blew way past that goal thanks to the excitement around their technology and their product. They reached over $2 million. Now, that's not the impressive part of the story. It's what happened 2 years later when Mark Zuckerberg, heading up Facebook, dropped $2 billion to purchase Oculus outright. Now, Facebook then, as it is still today, a social media company. What were they going to do with a virtual reality hardware company? Let's find out. The story of Oculus begins with Palmer Luckey. He had an interesting upbringing because he was homeschooled, and at an early age he became quite independent and someone who was self-driven to do things that he was interested in. And what he was interested in was gaming, using gaming consoles and combining that with new technology into new things. By 2009, he'd created a group of people similarly interested in using retro hardware and creating new things, and that was called Mod Retro. Also in 2009, he began tinkering with virtual reality headsets, and it was that over the next few years that became so successful. There were virtual reality headsets around at the time, but they were bulky and expensive. Though this headset was also quite bulky, the Oculus Rift product, as it became called, was made from inexpensive mobile phone technology parts and therefore became affordable for many people. The development of Oculus Rift began in 2009 and continued on and hit a milestone in 2012 when it was launched on Kickstarter. With an original goal of raising $250,000, they ended up raising $2.4 million. Now, some of that success was due to the fact that it was backed by John Carmack of Doom and Quake fame, and that created a lot of hype and interest and confidence in the Oculus Rift product at that time. Now, Oculus gained early momentum at that point thanks to the success of that Kickstarter campaign, and the company grew rapidly over the next few years with a significant investment. Up to $91 million of capital was raised to bring in the staff and turn Oculus into a real product. They released early products called DK1 and DK2. These are development kits that people could use and create their own virtual reality headsets, really for the gaming industry. So this niche with these developers was the key way they got into the market. Now in 2014, Mark Zuckerberg offered and they accepted $2 billion in cash and stock, which was then accepted, and they were taken into the Facebook corporation. Now, there is controversy out there you can look up. We got some sources in the description below that you can follow up if you want to know about the controversy around Kickstarter. But in a nutshell, it's around people that pledged support on Kickstarter and felt that there should have been some kind of financial return as if they were investors. But Kickstarter doesn't work that way. The pledges were in support, they were backers, they were donations, or they were purchasing a product which they ultimately received. So the question comes about, why would Mark Zuckerberg put $2 billion into Oculus? It's a lot of money. At that time, Facebook was and still is predominantly a social media company, but perhaps looking for some new spark, the next big thing. Back then, as even now, is Facebook still relevant for younger people coming into the market? And we've seen many other acquisitions that Facebook/Meta have done over the years to try to reinvent themselves and keep the interest in this incredible platform going. Mark Zuckerberg's own words were to the effect that he saw virtual reality as the next step, the next natural evolution after cell phones. Now, cell phones is a massive market. Hundreds of millions of smartphones are sold every year. Companies like Apple, Google, Samsung, they've all done extremely well out of backing that technology, and he felt that he could get ahead of the curve by investing in virtual reality. Shortly after the purchase of Oculus into Facebook, in fact, within 2 years, Facebook/Meta had released the first Oculus Rift, the CV1, for around $599, which was a good price point and was moderately successful. In those subsequent years, they released multiple versions with higher performance and lower cost. And then in subsequent years, they changed the name from Oculus to Meta Quest. And then we got Quest 1, 2, and 3. And this is still going on today. We're getting more performance, we're getting better pricing, and it's becoming more readily adopted. Now, the Oculus line of products, or the virtual reality line of products, enjoyed steady growth throughout those years up until 2020, and then a burst of growth over the next subsequent years because of the pandemic, which drove sales as people were finding themselves indoors, looking for other forms of entertainment and being limited, and looking for ways to spend more time at home enjoyably. That ultimately caused a subsequent downturn in sales and revenues as people, were what they would call the Metaverse hangover. They wanted to get back outside again and away from the computers, so they weren't so motivated. It's on a macro scale. But then you've also got the hardware cycles coming in. That means where people tend to hold on to older hardware until there's a new big platform, something significant that gets them over the line to upgrade. And we're really heading for that now, waiting for that next big breakthrough to get the sales moving again for the Meta Quest or Oculus virtual reality headsets. So the big question is, has this been a good investment for Meta and Facebook? Well, the way to analyze this is to try to figure out whether it's a niche product or it has this broader application. So in the niche side of things, it's really virtual reality for gamers. It's enhancing that gaming experience, which really is a niche. It's not going to be anywhere near the size of mobile phones. Mobile phones are orders of magnitude more in terms of volume, and this is what Zuckerberg is going after. So how do we get out of that niche gaming market into this broader market? Well, there's multiple ways that we could see this going forward. One of them would be that we have such advanced technology that we're wearing that it essentially replaces my glasses and gives me more information on my glasses, which I have to wear regardless. Now, that would be one way that I could see replacing my handset with something that I'm wearing. Another way might be in use in specific job training or education or health, or going into those industries where it's a real benefit to have virtual reality. So giving, say, students an out of classroom experience that's far more memorable and far better learning experience using virtual reality than could be done with the blackboard. Or with health, where you need to interact more intimately with a patient, but you are remotely removed from them. Virtual reality could be a great way to do that. Now, there are all these other work-related industrial applications which could combine to help move virtual reality forward. But can we get to this ubiquitous mobile phone replacement technology? Now, one of the obvious challenges is the size and bulk of the hardware. So my glasses are very thin and light. I barely notice that I'm wearing them, but if I had a choice, I wouldn't wear them at all. Certainly going from this to a big bulky headset isn't something I'm going to be comfortable with, and I don't think many other people will as well. So advancements in hardware are continual and do continue. And in fact, last year, Meta released their Ray-Ban glasses, which were a big step forward in terms of being able to do some virtual reality in glasses that were quite sleek and capable, although they did have a lot of electronics and weight around the back. Now, these things were going to just continue to march on, but it's going to take time. The second big challenge is the killer apps. What is the app that's really going to drive the interest in this virtual reality world? So a killer app example might be the use of cameras in cell phones. Now, people used to say that was just a piece of hardware. Well, the killer app was, the fact that you could do video, good quality images, and you had it there with you. That's a killer app. It still is today, just the ability to record those things when you are out and about, not have to have a separate camera. There was lots of talk about, having killer apps which directly stream to social media and those sorts of things, but really it was that basic killer app app, which was really just a video recording app, which really set that piece of technology on fire. And really for the last 20 years, we've seen camera technologies mature and improve phenomenally. Do we have a similar killer app? Now, I think Facebook envisions that there could be. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg has been experimenting or leading the way, experimenting with this metaverse. The examples that I've seen seem very rudimentary and certainly a long way from perhaps the Matrix vision of a real immersive reality experience that takes you to another fantasy world. It's more like a cartoon, which is not very compelling. So these killer apps, I believe, are one of the big challenges we have with VR. Another big limitation is the cultural fit. So do people see virtual reality glasses as something essential? Again, back to the mobile phone case, it became the case that a mobile phone was essential. Now, way back in the day, in the early 90s, before cell phones were ubiquitous like they are today, people used to say to me things like, well, I don't want to have a cell phone because I don't want someone calling me when I don't want to receive calls. That was a cultural barrier and very easily overcome because we used to say, well, just turn your phone off. But I see my cell phone as essential, and it's with me all the time, as do most people. So seeing virtual reality as something essential is also another major challenge, and it needs to get over a barrier and become something that is there for many, many people before the uptake can be there in this sort of mass market way. Now, the final challenge is turning the Oculus Rift and the VR investment into a return on investment, which is positive for the company. We ran some scenarios, and I'm going to put some links in the description about the data that we were able to collect for this brief analysis, and we look at the base case. The base case is that we are really just going to continue on the trajectory that we're on, penetrating the gaming market with the competition coming in and being a player in that market. Now, with the investment that we have calculated Meta's put in, they're going to have a negative return on investment for the foreseeable future under this case. And the only big benefits that we can see, and they are big for Meta and uncalculable, are the R&D spillovers, that they can use this R&D for multiple other things that will generate revenue and justify that. We don't have the ability to see that. Now, beyond that base case, there would be a bull case where we're much more successful in penetrating this global market for gaming than the base case. That would see some kind of profitability over the next 10 years, a return on investment going positive over the next 10 years, so by 2035. And that is with very positive, optimistic projections rather than the base case being quite conservative. And then the third scenario is tapping into the mass market. So this is looking towards that longer term vision and trying to drive that long term vision back to an earlier time frame, such that people are replacing or using VR headsets instead of their cell phone or some other piece of technology. That has those many barriers that we talked about. So how could Meta actually work to overcome the challenges and make this a technology which is adopted by the masses? I was to advise Mark Zuckerberg as to what I would do if I was in his shoes. I would focus on the following. Firstly, the hardware engineering. We have to drive the development of advanced hardware. The optics needs to become more capable. The silicon chips need to be smaller and more powerful. We need neural networks that are smaller and more powerful. This is driving all those pieces of hardware technology to be smaller, lighter, and cheaper. The second main recommendation I would make would be to position Meta to control a platform. In a similar way that we have the Apple Store and the Google Store, we would have the Meta Store, where we can put all the applications that would be downloaded onto virtual reality headsets, not just those owned and controlled by Meta, but really are controlled by third-party hardware providers, and controlling that operating system, controlling that platform. Another recommendation would be to embrace AI in the following ways. Using AI for gestures and movement and understanding more about the wearer and what they're doing and what's happening in their environment, and interpreting that and using that information in useful ways. Also, to use AI to build worlds within the virtual reality space. Have AI do the creation of exciting new worlds that don't require people to build them, but are actually built, if you like, on the fly by those people that are using them. And finally is to leverage the social media platforms. make virtual reality part of the social media platforms, create the social interaction. Now, we've seen Zuckerberg try to represent this type of thing, and I don't think it really is compelling, but the direction is there. Can we get better immersive experience socially using VR that we just can't get with current technology? One example that we're all aware of, especially as we went through the pandemic, is the uptake of video and now the continual use of video and the insistence by many people to use video over phone or text because they want that better interaction. That's a cultural shift that has happened. I think it would have happened anyway, but the pandemic sped that up. What's going to be the driver to create the deeper social connections that we could have with virtual reality headsets? There is one technology application which I think is really important to mention, and that is the use of virtual reality in the cycling industry. As you know, we have a product called Hawkeye, dedicated to helping riders stay safe whilst they're on the roads. The piece of the puzzle which would make such a big difference to our technology roadmap is to have a good set of virtual reality glasses which is representing well what is coming up behind you. So this isn't just a video feed, it's the graphical view and creating that situational awareness of what's happening around you. Giving somebody a 360-degree view whilst they're cycling, or even in other applications such as skiing, snowboarding, even just walking or hiking or jogging, or any of those situations where you want to know what's around you and you only have vision at the front of you. They are killer apps, in my opinion, for virtual reality. So what do I think is going to happen in the next few years? Well, I think we're going to see constant evolution, steady evolution, and better technology on all fronts, as I mentioned, that will make virtual reality more compelling in the gaming industry. And then we're going to see other niche applications, for example, in medical fields, maybe in education, where this technology is now getting to the price points where it's affordable and practical to be rolled out into those other niche applications. That gray area in the middle has an indeterminate amount of time before we can get to the big win, which is to try to replace the cell phone. I think we are 10 to 20 years away from that, and it may never happen, but that's my prediction. It's a tough challenge to overcome. It's an exciting future. I'm looking forward to seeing Facebook Meta do with this technology, want to be a part of it and see what them and their competitors are getting up to. If you enjoyed this content and you'd like to see more, please leave a comment in the description with your suggestion for a topic we can cover. We do things related to AI, whether they are directly in AI or related to AI, like the one here on virtual reality. Also, if you could hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, that would really help us out. I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.